So Kevin McCarthy is the Republican House Minority Leader, and he weighed in on 29 people being massacred in a 13-hour period, one in a mass shooting in Dayton, and another one in an El Paso Walmart from a white supremacist who made crystal clear, I want to kill brown people. So usually in a situation like this, well, I was going to say they'd be upfront about what happened, but no, they wouldn't. They would always deflect and obfuscate. But it's clear in this instance, especially in the El Paso shooting, it's the racism, it's the bigotry, it's the xenophobia, it's a terrorist attack, and he was using, a weapon that he probably shouldn't have even had access to in the first place. So maybe those are the things we should put front and center. The ideology that drove him to do what he did, and the fact that he was able to get his hands on, an incredibly powerful weapon without much of a struggle at all. So that's, maybe that should be front and center. No. Kevin McCarthy has a brilliant, scapegoat here that he wants to roll out for us.
We heard from the deputy governor of Texas earlier, and he was talking, it was a very impassioned conversation, really, and he was talking about the tone that the public uses on social media. He was talking about video games, all of these things that could have triggered, certainly the video game situation, he was saying, may have triggered the shooter there in El Paso. But what are your thoughts on that in terms of understanding that words matter, and that when we're talking to each other on social media or looking at video games where they're using, videos of characters with these weapons, is there a conversation to be had about that, about the tone that this country is using? It's become commonplace to say whatever you want to anybody on social media.
I think we should, and you want to see from these individuals what they wrote in others, but I mean, this may be a place that we could find this ahead of time. There may be a place of what's being written can be changed, could be an indication that an individual needs help in others that we can stop. But the idea of these video games to dehumanize individuals, to have a game of shooting individuals and others, I've always felt that is a problem for future generations and others. We've watched from studies shown before of what it does to individuals. When you look at these photos of how it took place, you can see the actions within video games and others. But what I'd like to do is make sure just get all the facts where there are indications. And there's times before that we have found this, and there's times before that we've proven we could come together just in the last Congress.
That is such complete and utter horseshit, and it's infuriating. They have studied this. But the conclusion they came to is the exact opposite of what he's pretending. It's been proven that there is no link between violent video games and actual violence. You want to know why? Because people can tell the difference between using a fucking joystick and playing a game and real life. In the same way that, when you go and watch Rambo, you don't immediately say, wow, I really want to go light up some motherfuckers with a machine gun. Nobody does that. Nobody does that because they know, oh, this is a movie. In the same way that when they play a video game, they go, oh, this is a video game. In fact, if anything, you could maybe make the argument. Now, I'm not sure if the data backs this up, so just understand this is a hypothesis. This hasn't been proven. But if anything, maybe it has the total opposite effect, where you might have some people that have some weird natural urges and inclinations toward violence, and they use this as an outlet to get out those weird, strange, bizarre feelings, those wrong feelings that they have. That is way more likely than what he's saying, because we know as a matter of fact that the argument he's making is the opposite of the truth. Because, I got news for you, they have video games in the UK, and they have video games in Japan, and let me take a look at their death count compared to us. They have, none of the deaths we have. That's not fair. I think in Japan, maybe they have less than 10 gun deaths per year. In the UK, it's 31. Here we have 10,000 homicides per year, 32,000 total gun deaths when you include homicides, suicides, accidents, so on and so forth. So, you're wrong. You're wrong, and nobody's ever been more wrong. And this is scapegoating, this is deflecting, this is obfuscating, because you want to change the discussion. And notice, he did that. Why? Look at this clip. To this point, have we talked about the real problem at all? No. We've only talked about what is definitely not the problem, which is video games. And the thing that got me maybe even more mad is, look at the lead-in from Maria Bartiromo. She says, words matter. And people are mean to each other on social media. Fox News, you want to talk about words matter? Fox News is incredibly vicious, and oftentimes they flat out lie about the Democrats and candidates they don't like. So it's true that words matter, but I mean, you guys are like primary culprit if you're going to talk about how, oh, you should tone police and make sure you don't go too far in criticisms. But furthermore, I love how in their mind they think like, don't touch guns, Second Amendment. But what do they blame? First Amendment, we're too free. We use our voice too much. No, using your voice and arguing and strongly disagreeing, those are positive things. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing negative about that. Being mean to people on social media, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. I mean, you should try to be a good person. But if you're having a disagreement with somebody and you vehemently disagree, yeah, that's called freedom of speech. That's called being a human being and fleshing out ideas. So look at how terrible they are at deflecting. They want to protect guns, and they want to act like, you know, the bigoted rhetoric that comes from the far right on a regular basis has nothing to do with this. So what do? Well, we're mean on social media to each other, and that's bad. We should all just hold hands and sing Kumbaya and never argue and act like we live in Leave It to Beaver. The video games. It's the goddamn video games. There are many times I've played video games. I've played first-person shooters. Never once have I said, man, I really do have an urge to go to the local Arby's and do a mass shooting now. Never has that happened. Never will that happen, because that's not the way this works. Think about how condescending and pedantic that is. I mean, the idea that you would even think to make that link, to make that connection, I honestly find it beyond absurd. We spoke about it before, but the reality is, you look at every poll on gun reform, basic gun reform, everybody supports. Not just Democrats, not Democrats and independents, Democrats, independents, and Republicans. It's overwhelming. In some polls, over 90% of the American people want a universal background check. And we can go on and on. You know, I just showed the poll before, and this one's all the way back to 2016. The ones in 2017 and 2018 are even stronger in the direction of gun reform. But people say there should be mental health checks. You should regularly have to take a mental health test. People should have to vouch for you. There should be a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And again, it's overwhelming. It's not even close. So it's almost like they know that this is the reality, and so they're doing everything they possibly can to do the mental gymnastics to deflect and divert from that very serious conversation. And also try to deflect from the conversation that we have the video. We've seen it time and time again. Fox News has referred to immigrants and refugees as an infestation and an invasion. The exact same language that this dude uses in his manifesto. So, you know, playing a role in the dehumanization of immigrants, that's a giant part of the problem too. So maybe you should be intelligent and rational and reasonable in your coverage of immigration. How's that for an idea? So you let people know, hey, a lot of these are just mostly good people just fleeing a horrendous circumstance and trying to save their lives and create a better future and work hard. A lot of these people are fleeing from the consequences of U.S. policies that destroyed the region, whether it be the drug war or foreign policy in terms of South America. I mean, you would think that giving those facts would be incredibly important on this topic, but no. The narrative nonstop is immigrants bad, immigrants bad, immigrants bad. And of course, the narrative on guns is guns always good. Any restrictions at all are a violation of the Second Amendment. And They have to do this dishonest deflection from the real conversations that we should be having because they know they can't engage in those conversations because they're wrong in those conversations.